yours truly, Mike Manalo. Today, in honor of the movie Yesterday, I will be singing the entire review for you. Ready? Hey guys, I've just been informed by my editor that there will be no singing during this review. I am so sorry that I have to deprive you guys of my silky smooth rockstar voice. I don't have a silky smooth rockstar voice. Sorry about that. Anyways, on to the review. Yesterday is the latest from writer Richard Curtis, who brought us such hits and classics as Four Weddings and a Funeral, Notting Hill, and of course, Love Actually, and his first collaboration with Danny Boyle, the director of the classic Slumdog Millionaire, as well as 28 Days Later and Jobs. Today they collaborate on a romantic comedy about a man who's a struggling songwriter who encounters a pretty violent accident while biking during a blackout that happens across the world and wakes up in a world in which people don't know who the Beatles are. The movie stars Himesh Patel, who is a relative newcomer to the film scene, but you might know him from a lot of BBC shows like EastEnders, as well as Lily James, who you might know from Baby Driver and the recent Cinderella from 2015. And let me just tell you, these two actors are fantastic in this movie. This is a really charming movie, and you wouldn't expect any less from the guy that brought us Love Actually and About Time. Richard Curtis is in full rom-com clever mode. And the thing about his movies, of which I'm a self-professed and admittedly guilty of being a big fan of all of his works, the thing about his movies is, yeah, you could argue that these are cheesy rom-coms. They basically borderline cliche, of which a lot of the cliches that we see in rom-coms today are because of Richard Curtis. But all things considered, the difference between a mass-manufactured and mass-packaged rom-com that's just put together to sell tickets and make you go "aw" during Valentine's Day, and a Richard Curtis rom-com is that you could actually feel the passion and the believability and the sincerity in all of Curtis's words. And Yesterday is no exception. There's something very sweet about it. There's something very genuine in the way that Curtis looks at the Beatles and how he idolizes the Beatles. And overall, it's a very sweet-natured movie, anchored by really good chemistry and really good performances in Patel and James. You could believe that this relationship has existed between them for years, and you could believe in the romance. And there's this fantastic sequence where they just go and have an eye on the town and enjoy each other's company and dance in tunnels all over London. And it's genuinely organic and sweet, and there's so much chemistry and, romance and electricity between them. I think probably where some of the weaknesses lie with Yesterday would be in Boyle's direction. Danny Boyle doesn't typically do rom-coms like Richard Curtis does. In his case, Boyle really needed to sort of scale back and keep things simple. I think this is a very simple script and very simple but genuine emotions. And Boyle has a tendency to go a little bit outlandish in his direction at certain points during the film. When they announce locations where the characters are at, you'll see these weird 90s looking PowerPoint graphics that just travel across the screen like balloons or gigantic words animating, and it doesn't fit the tone of the movie. There's one scene where we're chronicling Patel's character's rise to fame, and it looks like he's in some weird Apple-sponsored cube where he's watching his career on different screens, and it's just completely unnecessary. He'll go into black and white and tilt the camera, and it doesn't really make much sense. It doesn't really ruin the integrity or the sincerity of Curtis's script or the screenplay, and he manages to get excellent performances out of his cast. I would say from the weak points within the cast, Kate McKinnon, who plays, Patel's sleazy agent manager that's helping him, rise to fame, is actually kind of a cartoony caricature. It doesn't really work in this movie, which, while it's a fantasy, it's not really believable that this type of person exists. It's true that there's a stereotype in entertainment that managers only see their clients as products, but I think McKinnon's character and the way that she was written in Curtis's script really seems a little cliche, really forced, really cartoony, like I said earlier. I think McKinnon is one of those actresses who we know can be very gifted, but has a tendency to go a little over the top. We've seen it in Ghostbusters and Saturday Night Live. And while we love Kate McKinnon, we think she's funny, in this particular film, I don't think it quite worked. That being said, I can't shower enough praise on Patel and James. They are honestly fantastic together. I think Lily James is so charming, so sweet. You believe every word that she says. I took my friend to see the screening, and one of her funny comments about it was that Lily James really has one of the best cry faces in history, and whenever we do see her cry, she's such a charming and welcome presence on screen that we just want to jump into the screen and comfort her. She's absolutely wonderful. And Patel, I didn't realize what a fantastic singer and guitar player he is. It's a really lovely film breakthrough, really something that harkens back to Hugh Grant in Four Weddings and a Funeral. Quite frankly, he knows how to play that charming, conflicted lead. I noticed that there are a lot of reviews out there that are kind of commenting on the fantasy aspect of the movie, how it doesn't really make sense because, spoiler alert, a lot of the fantasy when Patel wakes up, a lot of the elements that don't necessarily exist anymore, like the Beatles or like Coke, several jokes and examples like that throughout the film, is never explained. To me, that was not a problem. I actually just immersed myself in the world and immersed myself in the story that Curtis was trying to tell. And I think that the movie benefits a lot more when you suspend that disbelief and when you just sort of buy into it and let it take you on this journey fueled by the amazing Beatles soundtrack. As a Beatles fan myself, I couldn't get enough of Hamish just picking up the guitar and singing really proficiently these covers of, the amazing Beatles songs that we all know and we all love. And I think that this movie ends up being an absolute love letter to that music, to the Beatles, and to the ways that Beatles music genuinely makes us feel inside. Among other highlights in the film, Ed Sheeran's got a really fantastic role. He's very funny in that. And a lot of the side characters are really charming, really funny. And the group of friends that, Patel and James have within the movie really harken back to the friends that Bridget Jones had in the Curtis penned Bridget Jones's Diary, or a lot of the friends that Hugh Grant had in Four Weddings and a Funeral. I think he's a big fan of these tropes where you have the kooky friends that are kind of misfits and kind of wacky, but are just really good-hearted. And I'm not going to say that this is the most original movie ever. We've seen a lot of Richard Curtis movies just like this, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. We know that this is his style, we know that this is what he loves to do, and we know that he believes in it 110% in ways that many filmmakers out there don't necessarily believe in the work that they're crafting. Richard Curtis, you could tell, is a bleeding heart that believes in the romance that he's preaching about in his own movies. And it's because of that reason, as well as the amazing performances and chemistry between the leads, that this movie, Yesterday, really succeeds. So, I'm going to give Yesterday a B+. Thanks again for tuning in, guys. Stay tuned, nerds. There will be more reviews coming your way. We got a busy summer. Look out for reviews on Lion King and some of the other more anticipated movies this year. Thanks again. Bye.